She knocked on the wrong door at midnight. What the millionaire did next will shock you. It was a night thick with shadows, the moon hanging low like a spotlight teasing the darkness below. In the upper echelon of the city, a sleek mansion loomed, a fortress of wealth and whispering secrets. But inside, something twisted was brewing, something that would shatter the dark calm. As the clock struck 12, a frantic knock echoed through the opulent halls. At that hour, everyone knew, knocking was a symbol of danger, a call for help, or a long-held secret about to spill out. What awaited on the other side of that door was far beyond what anyone could imagine. Jessica stood breathless on the mansion's doorstep, her heart racing like a wild stallion. She wore a simple hoodie, the fabric barely holding back the shivers coursing down her spine. The shimmering chandeliers overhead flickered menacingly, casting haunted faces on the walls. She didn't belong here, and she felt it. It was as if the expensive marble beneath her feet was judging her. Each breath felt heavier with the weight of the million-dollar abode. Why had she come? What nightmare had driven her to this threshold? Through the heavy door, the millionaire Harold Blackwood stirred. The man was as infamous as he was obscenely wealthy. Known for throwing extravagant parties that left the city buzzing for weeks, he had a reputation for danger, too. Dark rumors swirled like a relentless storm, whispers of broken fortunes, shattered dreams, and a temper that could gouge the air with tension. He approached the door, piercing blue eyes narrowing with curiosity and something darker lurking within. What was this desperate girl wanting at his door? Suddenly, the door creaked open, and she was swallowed by a deluge of lavish aroma and mystery. The air was thick with the scent of aged bourbon and faint smoke. Harold stood there, a towering figure, handsome, imposing, a persona wrapped in allure and fear. But instead of anger, there was an unsettling grin stretched across his face. "You must be lost," he said softly, like honey dripping from a comb, yet the chill that ran down her spine told her otherwise. "Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. What happened next felt surreal, like being thrust into a movie where the plot twisted unexpectedly. Jessica thought about turning back. The wild pounding of her heart was a clear signal. But there was something magnetic about him, something that pulled her deeper into the darkness. As she stood frozen on that threshold, she couldn't help but wonder what secrets would unravel if she took a single step inside the mansion. She bit her lip, considering the danger lurking in those blue eyes. Would she find out things she wasn't supposed to know? Or was she just a pawn in a game far too devious for her understanding? The tension hung between them, thick as fog, as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for a salacious truth to spill over. Jessica was caught in the webs of fate, and there was no turning back. What awaited her inside was a mystery all its own, one that would change everything. Jessica took a deep breath, her chest tightening as she finally crossed the threshold. The moment she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her with an ominous thud that echoed like a gunshot. "Welcome," Harold said, his voice smooth but edged with something dark. He gestured toward the lavish interior, rich with deep mahogany and plush fabrics that screamed wealth. It was breathtaking, yet it felt like a trap wrapped in glitter and glamour. "What do you want?" she blurted out, her voice shaky and thin. The weight of his gaze bore down on her. She could feel a million unasked questions swirling around them, her heart thudding against her ribs, desperate to escape this gilded cage. "Want?" he echoed, lips curling into a smirk that could twist steel. "You knocked on my door, didn't you? What is it that brings you here, at this hour?" His tone shifted, drawing her in and leaving her feeling exposed, like a moth drawn to a flame. She searched his face for any sign of the monster the rumors painted him to be, but all she found was the dangerous allure that seemed to mesmerize everyone he encountered. "I needed help." She hesitated, realizing how weak those words sounded. Help? Wasn't she the one who had come here out of desperation, into the heart of a beast?
My brother he's missing.
Harold's expression changed, eyes narrowing with interest. Missing? He repeated, the word lingering like a cloud of smoke in the air. Yes, she said, desperation creeping into her voice. I was told he may have come here. I thought maybe you could help me find him. I heard stories, dangerous stories, but her cheeks flushed with shame. She wasn't sure why she was pouring her heart out to a man cloaked in mystery. Dangerous stories? Harold took a step closer, closing the space between them. What have you heard, Jessica? The way he said her name made her shiver. Everyone says you're powerful, he interrupted, almost mockingly. Influential, perhaps even ruthless when it comes to securing what I desire. Jessica felt her throat tighten, and panic washed over her. He didn't look angry, he looked intrigued, and that made her even more uneasy. I don't want to get in your way. I just need to know if you have seen him. A flicker of something dangerous danced in his eyes. Tell me about your brother. She hesitated, searching for the right words, weighing every detail as if they were precious gems. His name is Mark. He's a good guy. He got mixed up in some stuff he shouldn't have. People were after him. I received a tip that he sought refuge here. Harold's face lit up in a way that made her heart race. Was it amusement? Would he think her desperation was entertaining? Ah, poor Mark. There was a mocking tone that made her stomach churn. And what makes you believe I'm the one who can help you? Nobody else could, or perhaps I am the very danger your brother sought to escape. With those words, an electric tension crackled in the air. She felt the walls close in around her, an invisible cage tightening its grip. Suddenly, an idea struck her, something more than just desperation clawed at her insides. You know him then? A smile sharp and predatory flashed across Harold's face, and everything froze. I do indeed, and what I know might shock you more than you imagine. Her pulse raced. What do you mean? Let us just say your brother is tangled in a web far more intricate than you realized. Just then, the lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness, the electricity sparking a sense of dread. Jessica's breath caught in her throat as she stared into his piercing eyes, realization dawning. Whatever secrets this house held, they were already beginning to unravel, but at what cost? Harold leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a husky whisper, but are you ready for the truth? The heavy silence around them pulsed with tension as Jessica grappled with wild hope and deepening dread. What could he possibly mean? What had her brother gotten himself into? The answer felt close enough to touch, yet it danced just out of reach, leaving her heart racing with questions. That would soon demand answers. What she didn't know was how deeply those secrets ran and how the truth could change everything. The lights flickered back to life, casting an eerie glow over the room as Jessica's heart climbed higher into her throat. She watched Harold's face shift under the new light, shadows playing on his features like a sinister game of hide and seek. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her skin crawl, like he could see right into her soul. Prepare yourself, Jessica, he said, his voice low and almost conspiratorial. The web your brother has woven is not just tangled, it's deadly. Jessica felt a chill race down her spine. What do you mean? Is he in danger? Her voice wavered, fear flooding her system like icy water. Harold stilled, and for a moment, the room seemed to shift, the walls tightening around her. Mark's not the only one you need to worry about, he whispered, almost seductively. He has entangled himself with some very dangerous people. When they come for him, and they won't just come knocking. What people? She pressed, desperate for details that could lead her to her brother. Powerful players in this city, Harold shrugged lightly, as if he were discussing the weather. People who trade in secrets and favors, and they won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who gets in their way, including you. A lump formed in her throat. She imagined her brother cornered, frightened, surrounded by shadows growing larger by the second. You have to help me, she gasped. You can't just leave him to them. Harold took a step back, regarding her with an amused curiosity. And why would I do that? His question lingered like smoke in the air, heavy and suffocating. What do you think I stand to gain from getting involved? Jessica clenched her fists. Rage mingled with fear in her chest, creating a suffocating knot. You know what it's like to care for someone, don't you? I can't lose him. He held her gaze. Care? It's a weakness, darling. One that can bring even the strongest men to their knees. The rush of heat turned her face crimson. She straightened herself. Then let me be your challenge. Help me find him, and you can have what you want. Whatever it is. An amused eyebrow shot up. An intriguing proposition. But what if I told you that what I want is much darker than a mere favor? Would you still be willing to play, Jessica? Her heart pounded in her chest. The glittering world around her seemed to pulse with life, filled with untold horrors hidden beneath the surface. What do you want from me? Harold stepped closer, and she swallowed hard, hands trembling at her sides. You have no idea what you're asking for. We are not talking about simple favors or trivial exchanges. The price could be your very innocence. There was an intensity in his voice that felt dangerous, enticing. It made her stomach churn and her determination burn brighter. I'm willing to take that risk, she forced out, but her voice wavered. Very well. But know this, if you enter this dance with me, there's no turning back. You'll uncover secrets that will haunt you, secrets that could destroy you. He turned to stride deeper into the room, dismissing her with a wave of his hand like she was just another toy in his rich collection. Follow me, and hold on to your sense of self tightly, Jessica. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to retreat, but she stood her ground. She had come this far. She couldn't lose Mark, not now. As she followed Harold, the darkness seemed to beckon, wrapping around her like a serpent ready to strike. Each step resonated with dread and anticipation, fear crashing against an unwavering will. What lies here? What truths must I face? She wondered as the shadows closed in. Without warning, a loud crash echoed from the depths of the house, shattering the tense atmosphere. Jessica froze, her heart skipping a beat. What had she gotten herself into? Stay close, Harold commanded, his tone sharp. You're about to see just how deep this darkness goes. With a mixture of dread and hope, Jessica steeled herself for the secrets lurking just around the corner. But what she didn't know was that in pursuing the truth, she might unleash a darkness that could consume them both. The air thickened as Jessica followed Harold further into the depths of his sprawling mansion. Gloom enveloped her, and her senses sharpened with each step. The walls seemed to murmur secrets, swirling whispers echoing the unspoken histories tied within them. What was that crash? Her voice trembled, the fear clawing at her throat. Just remnants of the past, he answered, glancing back, his expression unbothered. We bystanders deal with echoes in our own ways. She swallowed hard, her thoughts darting back to Mark. What if he's already stopped? Harold cut her off abruptly, centering his focus ahead as if trying to decipher just how far the shadows extended. Worrying about what has already happened will only lead you astray. Let us focus on what is to come. They're after him. Panic blossomed in her chest, muscles tightening with unrest. He won't survive much longer in this underworld you're talking about. As if in response, the floorboards groaned underfoot, vibrating with an energy that felt almost alive. Her heart raced faster. Was it fear or was it something darker awakening? Then you better hope we reach the heart of this game quickly, Harold replied, his voice steady and calm, as if trying to placate a caged beast. And if luck's on your side, we might find a way to turn it. Jessica forced herself to breathe, picturing Mark's face, the warmth, the laughter. She wasn't here to find herself tangled in a deadly game. She was here to save him. The corridor narrowed and led to an expansive room filled with towering shelves of documents, each one likely concealing half-truths that could be as deadly as bullets. She stepped inside, her pulse echoing in her ears. Welcome to the archives of our shadows, Harold gestured grandly, his playful demeanor contrasting sharply with the dangerous air that enveloped them. Documents littered the desk, stacks like abandoned dreams, and chilling photographs adorned the walls, faces of people she didn't recognize, each pair of eyes seeming to watch her as she entered this lair of secrets. "What is all this?" she breathed, desperately scanning the room, feeling the weight of countless untold stories bearing down on her. "Everything you need to know about your brother's choices," he replied. "And the people who want to keep these consequences buried deep." She approached the desk, her eyes widening as one photograph arrested her gaze. Mark, smiling uncertainly, one arm over a shadowy figure, a man with a smile that chilled her to the bone. It was the face of someone who thrived in this dark underbelly. "That's him," she gasped, pointing, heart plummeting. "Who is that man?" Harold chuckled softly, his amusement mixing with menace. "Ah, the puppet master. His reach extends further than you realize. One wrong move and you might end up as just another piece on this board, or a casualty. Tell me how to save him," she pleaded, feeling the ground beneath her shift. Harold's expression tightened, and as the shadows flickered around them, a sinister realization etched itself into her mind. This wasn't just about finding Mark anymore. It was a cliff dive into a world ripe with betrayal and ambition, and now Jessica was entangled in a game with stakes that cut deeper than she'd ever imagined. Suddenly, the tension broke as another crash echoed from somewhere deeper within the house, another reminder of the chaos waiting just outside these four walls. Jessica's resolve hardened, desperation clawing at her edges. "Follow me, I know where to dig deeper." Harold's eyes shone with a twisted excitement, and before she could respond, he turned on his heel and strode down another hallway, leaving her to weigh her options. Was she ready to face whatever awaited them? With heavy breaths and a heart full of dread, she followed, gripping tightly onto the hope that led her here. Yet, an unsettling thought trailed behind her. What if revealing the truth meant losing herself forever? The shadows whispered eagerly, as if urging her to take the plunge. What awaited her on the other side? The darkness beckoned again, suffocating and sweet, as she stepped into the anticipated abyss. Would she emerge with her brother or as a prisoner of her own treacherous choices? The hallway curled like a snake, its walls lined with darkened photos and velvet drapes that seemed to swallow the light. Jessica's heart thudded in her chest, each step echoing like a countdown. Harold turned abruptly and paused, his eyes glinting in the low light. "Here it is," he said, voice thick with anticipation. He pushed open an ornate door, revealing a dimly lit room cluttered with unmarked boxes and dusty artifacts from other lives. It was a hidden sanctuary, but its ambience dripped with foreboding secrets. "What is this place?" Jessica whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. "This is where the truth lies." Harold moved deeper into the room, unearthing boxes with practiced ease. "Consider it the heart of the game you've walked into." Confusion and curiosity battled within her as she scanned the space, her heart racing at the thought of what could be inside. Was this where she would find the answers about Mark? A glimmer of hope sparked within her. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice more assertive now, filled with resolve. "You must have your own agenda." Harold paused, turning to face her, his expression unsettlingly calm. "We all have our motives, Jessica. But your brother, he's a key player, and I'm merely facilitating the inevitable. The wolves aren't the only ones circling him." His words sank into her like stone. What could Mark have stumbled into that would attract predatory attention? The room felt smaller, the air thick with dread. She could sense the danger vibrating just beyond the threshold. "Look here," Harold said, lifting a lid from a box to reveal piles of documents. "This is deeper than you think." His decisions they've drawn the attention of more than just criminals. Jessica's hands trembled slightly as she reached for a file, her fingers grazing over the textures. Inside, she found a mix of photographs, but her breath caught when she noticed the names. Each one pulled at her heartstrings, some marked with red ink: caution, danger, loss. People he cared about. They've vanished, she said, eyes widening. "Precisely," Harold replied, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. "The deeper you dig, the more unstable your foundation becomes." "What do you mean?" Panic coursed through her veins. "Some are determined to keep their secrets buried," he warned, stepping closer. You're rooting around in a graveyard of choices. But with every truth you unearth, you risk awakening someone or something that wants to stay in the dark. While his words rattled her, another crash broke through the tension, louder this time, shaking the very walls. It felt like an alarm, screaming for attention. Jessica felt her body tense, adrenaline pumping, a primal urge to flee mixing with her drive to find Mark. "We need to keep moving," she said, urgency vibrating through her. Harold smirked slightly, undeterred by the commotion. What fun would that be? This is where the best stories unfold. Jessica frowned, not enjoying his demeanor. This isn't a game. My brother is in real danger. Then let us find out how deep the rabbit hole goes, he said, seemingly unfazed by her alarm. But consider this, Jessica, if you uncover the truth, are you prepared for the consequences? Not just for you, but for your brother? As they made their way back into the hallway, another crash echoed through the mansion, closer now. The tension thickened, almost suffocating as they pressed forward. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a sign that danger loomed closer, and she feared it wouldn't just stop at her brother, it would consume her too. Just as they reached the end of the corridor, a shadow passed by, deep and haunting. Jessica froze. "Did you see that?" she breathed. But Harold grabbed her arm, urgency washing over his features. "Stay close. Whatever's lurking in the dark, it senses our fear." The weight of what lay ahead clawed at her. Would the truth they uncovered be worth the potential doom that came with it? With one final glance over her shoulder, she urged forward into the unknown, every instinct screaming to run. But would running even be possible? As the chilling air of the unknown closed in, the realization settled it was no longer just about finding Mark. The walls whispered of danger more insidious than imagined, and she was caught in a web of shadows that threatened to ensnare her next. What awaited in the dark corners of Harold's mansion? Jessica could only pray that some answers remained hidden, or she might uncover horrors she was never meant to see. The deeper they ventured into the mansion, the more suffocating the atmosphere became. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, teasing the possibility of unseen threats lurking just beyond reach. Each corner they turned echoed with the weight of unspoken fears, and Jessica struggled to keep her breathing steady as apprehension gnawed at her core. Harold moved with calculated confidence, but Jessica could see a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. "Stay vigilant," he mouthed without a sound, and his seriousness wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. In this house, secrets and danger intertwined, each more potent than the last. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted nearby, as if the very walls were speaking in a language of chaos. Jessica's heart raced as she instinctively leapt closer to Harold, who remained unfazed, almost bored, despite the palpable tension. He motioned toward a door at the end of the hallway, its surface marred by lines of age and stories untold. "What's beyond there?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Answers," he replied, a cryptic smile playing at the corners of his lips. "But they come at a price." Jessica hesitated before stepping toward the door. Was she prepared to pay that price? The idea of facing whatever had claimed those lost souls from the files lingered hauntingly in the back of her mind. But it was Mark that drove her. She couldn't turn back now. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open. It creaked ominously, revealing a room blanketed in darkness, save for a sliver of moonlight streaming through a tiny window. Dust motes danced within the light, but the overall stillness felt oppressive. No sense of life, no whisper of hope, just a void, echoing cold and unwelcoming. "Look for something that stands out," Harold instructed, already scanning the edges of the room as if he knew what they were supposed to find. Jessica stepped hesitantly inside, her pulse quickening. Her eyes darted from one corner to another, searching for patterns or clues. But all she saw was more darkness, more unease. Just then, something caught her eye, a glint of silver peeking from beneath an old, tattered rug. "Over here!" she called, her demeanor shifting from fear to a spark of excitement. Kneeling down, she pulled the rug aside, revealing a metal box etched with intricate designs. It looked ancient yet resplendent, every detail telling a story of its own. "Open it," Harold urged, leaning closer as if he could sense the significance brimming beneath the surface. With shaking hands, Jessica lifted the lid, the creak echoing through the room like a thunderclap. Inside lay a collection of old photographs, some faded but still hauntingly vivid. One image made her gasp. It was a photo of Mark, smiling brightly at a gathering she didn't recognize. But her eyes widened as she recognized the figure standing beside him, a man cloaked in shadow, his face obscured, but there was something deeply unsettling about the way he watched Mark. Before she could process this, the door slammed shut behind them, a deafening sound that reverberated like a gunshot. Panic swept over her as she instinctively spun around. Harold! But he didn't respond. He was transfixed by the photographs in the box, studying them with grim focus. Jessica, these weren't taken just for memories. They document a web of connections. You must understand. Understand what? She interrupted, her heart racing. Harold, we're trapped. The air felt thick and suffocating, and she could hear the blood pounding in her ears. Another crash echoed from the hallway, deeper now, like a monster awakening from its slumber. We're not alone, Harold said quietly, finally breaking his gaze from the photos. The color drained from his face, which now held an expression she had never seen before: fear. Get us out of here! Jessica shouted, fear clawing at her. But as she turned back to the box, she noticed something else. Beneath the photographs lay a journal, its pages filled with frantic handwriting. Her eyes skimmed the lines, and her heart sank as words like betrayal, sacrifice, and payback leaped off the page. What had Mark gotten himself into? The crashing grew louder, each strike against the walls pulling them closer to the brink of panic. The mansion seemed alive with a threat they couldn't comprehend. Breathless and desperate, Jessica had to act. She gripped the journal, déjà vu washed over her. Someone in this tangled web had been watching, stalking. A sudden sharp noise shattered her thoughts, and the door creaked ominously as something heavy began to push against it. Jessica! Harold shouted, eyes wide with terror. We have to move now. But where would they go? And were they truly ready to face what lurked in the dark, ready to bring the painful truths to light? As the door buckled under the pressure, Jessica made a choice. She would find the truth even if it cost her everything. But what awaited them on the other side was something no one could prepare for. The door shuddered violently, splintering under the relentless pressure. As fear coursed through her veins, Jessica turned back to Harold, whose face was pale, wild disbelief flickering in his eyes. This way! He shouted, pushing aside an old bookcase that leaned against the wall dimly lit by the moonlight. Jessica's heart thundered in her chest as she rushed after him. The sound of the door groaning like an oncoming storm filled her ears, chased by a loud crash as something from beyond broke free. They stumbled into a narrow passage, the walls closing in around them as the ominous darkness swallowed them whole. Why did you say we weren't alone? Jessica gasped, her voice tinged with panic, breath coming in ragged bursts. Not now. Harold barked, his tone more commanding than ever. They sprinted through the maze of dim corridors, dimly lit by flickering bulbs hanging from the decaying ceiling like specters watching their every move. With each step, something felt off, like ice creeping across her skin. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see shadows hardening into shapes. We have to do something, Jessica urged, desperation clawing at her throat. Right. Harold's voice trembled, but he pressed onward, his body tense as he gestured for her to follow closely. We'll go to the cellar. It's the safest place for now. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air, long and haunting. It floated through the corridors, winding its way around Jessica like a whisper of despair. She froze, something cold settling in her stomach. What was that? She whispered. Just keep moving, Harold said, glancing back, his eyes wide with a mix of regret and fear. He pushed her onward as they rounded yet another corner, almost colliding with wooden crates piled high, their contents spilling out in a chaotic mess. They had to find a way out. After what felt like ages, each second stretching into eternity, they finally approached a stout wooden door at the end of the hallway, a sinister aura radiating from its cracked surface. Harold hesitated for a beat, his eyes darting to the ground. This doesn't feel right. Don't tell me we're going back, Jessica hissed, though a part of her understood the instinct. The hallway felt alive, watching, waiting, trapping them in a twisted game. No, Harold insisted, this is the way. Just trust me. With a shove, he threw the door open, revealing a dark staircase leading downward. Cold air wafted up, wrapping around her like a chilling embrace, pulling her further into the unknown. Do you feel that? Jessica whispered, shivering. It wasn't just the cold, it felt like the house itself was pulsing with life, an eerie heartbeat resonating beneath the floorboards. Yeah, but we must keep going. Harold inhaled deeply as he started down the steps, Jessica following closely, dread settling like a weight on her chest. The air thickened. Jessica could hear the whispers echoes of the past flickering in and out, tangled with the rustling of unseen entities. A deep rumble shook the ground beneath them, a harbinger of something dreadful stirring in the depths. Wait, she stopped short, suddenly struck by the journal in her hands. Harold, I need to see what's in here. There's no time. He urged, fear lacing his tone, but she felt a compulsion to recall the words she had glimpsed earlier, slipping away from her in the chaos. Just give me a second. She insisted, her fingers flying over the pages, scanning for meaning as the room felt alive with anticipation. This isn't just about Mark. It's about whatever lies in this house. The shadows around them deepened, and a whisper echoed through the dark, not hidden but tantalizingly close. You should have never come here. Jessica felt her breath hitch in her throat. Something was here with them. They weren't just running, they were running toward something. Something waiting. When a booming crash shook the foundation, Harold grabbed her arm. We have to go. Now. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye from the corner of the stairway, a figure, half hidden, staring into the shadows with hungry intent. Run! She shouted, yanking Harold away from the staircase as another crash erupted behind them. They darted into the depths of the cellar, but as the heavy door slammed shut, sealing them in darkness, a cynical laugh echoed softly outside, reverberating through the walls, a promise of dark revelations yet to unfold. What had they unleashed by opening that door? They needed answers, fast before whatever haunted the mansion unleashed its fury upon them, but even as they ran deeper into the unknown, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched by something far worse than they could ever comprehend. Harold, she whispered, her voice shaking, what if we're too late? The darkness pressed in closer as they ventured deeper, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty and fear. What lay ahead could either save them or seal their fates once and for all. The air thickened in the cellar. Jessica's skin prickled as if 1,000 tiny fingers were grazing her neck. She could see nothing but the creeping darkness that curled around them like a shroud. The weight of fear pressed down upon her, stifling her breath, and a shiver raced through her spine. Harold, can you see anything? She whispered, straining her eyes against the black. Not a damn thing, he replied tersely, his voice taut with urgency. But I can feel it, something's down here with us. His words tightened the knot in her stomach. Jessica swallowed hard, trying to swallow her rising panic. She could feel it too. It lingered like smoke in the air, a gnawing presence that lingered just beyond her awareness. The journal felt heavy in her hands. What secrets did it hold? Was it a key to salvation or their doom? She had no time to dwell on it. Not now. They needed a plan. Hurry! Harold urged, his voice rising in intensity. We need to find a way out. There has to be a window or something. His voice faded into the shadows as they moved further into the chaos of the cellar. Wooden beams creaked ominously above them, a grotesque symphony that accompanied the heavy silence. A guttural growl echoed somewhere close, vibrating through the walls, sending ice through her veins. Did you hear that? Jessica blurted out, panic clawing at her throat. Yes, Harold said, his breath quickening. Let us go toward it. Maybe it leads to a way out. Are you crazy? She hissed. That sound isn't friendly. Staying here isn't an option. We're trapped. He pulled her toward the sound, as if drawn in by some unseen force. They moved through the tight space. Shadows flickered against the walls, twisting in the dim light of Harold's phone. Every dark corner seemed to hide beasts waiting to spring. Jessica could feel time slipping away. The deeper they went, the more the air felt charged, like static electricity before a storm. Suddenly, a rustling erupted from the shadows, and a faint whimpering pierced through the heavy silence. "Did you hear that?" Jessica's pulse raced. "Yeah, but keep going," Harold replied, though his hesitation betrayed him. Jessica felt torn. An instinct screamed at her to keep running, but the sound was too desperate, too human. She instinctively followed the noise, her breath quickening as her heart thudded loudly in her ears. "Wait, Jessica!" Harold's voice tugged at her, but she pressed on. There was someone calling out, lost and alone. They found a dimly lit corner, and Jessica's breath hitched as shadows shifted and coalesced into a figure. A girl, no older than 15, sat crouched against the wall, looking terrified. Yet, the deeper fear shimmered behind her eyes, a haunted, pleading look. "Help me," the girl rasped, her voice barely breaking the silence. "Please." Something inside Jessica shattered. "What happened to you? Who did this?" Before the girl could answer, another crash echoed through the cellar, shaking the very ground beneath them. The laughter from earlier rang in Jessica's ears, a ghostly melody mocking them. "Run! We can't stay!" Harold shouted, his urgency palpable, but Jessica couldn't move. The girl was a ghostly reflection of what they had become, lost souls trapped in a dark abyss. "We can't leave her!" she cried, her heart hammering, but as Jessica reached out a hand, the room spun, and the girl's shadow seemed to twist into something darker, something more sinister. A warped smile spread across her face, revealing jagged teeth that glinted in the shadows. "Too late," the girl whispered, and the shadows around her pulsed, eager to swallow them whole. Jessica's instinct surged. Harold's grip tightened on her arm, his eyes wide with horror. "We need to go now." They turned to escape, but the laughter rose, growing sharper, cutting through the darkness like a knife. It echoed in their minds as they stumbled backward, terror gripping them. What had they really walked into? As they dove away from the twisted figure, they could still hear the echoes, lingering in the air like fading whispers. You should have never come here. Leaving the girl behind was a choice that would haunt them. But they needed to survive. With Harold leading the way, they dashed through the labyrinth of darkness, urgency flowing like adrenaline. But the deeper they went, the more they realized they were not simply fleeing. The house itself seemed to shift, a maze of dread and desire, enticing them towards an unknown horror. What lay in wait at the end of the corridor? The answer could shatter everything they believed or plunge them into an even deeper nightmare. Jessica felt her heart thrumming with one last question: were they racing toward salvation or doom? The darker they went, the more the shadows seemed to thrum with life, pulsating under their every hesitant step. Jessica felt like they were being swallowed whole, a gaping maw eager for new prey. The air thickened, suffocating, and thick with dread. Harold's whispered urgencies were lost in the swirling chaos of their surroundings. "Keep moving," he urged, pulling her through the swirling darkness, but every instinct in her screamed for them to turn back. The house was alive, twisting the very environment around them. The wall started to close in, warping, shifting like low tides curling around a rocky shore, leaving her gasping for air. We need to find another way," Jessica stammered, the knot in her stomach constricting further, like an iron grip. Harold halted, eyes wide. "Did you see that?" "What?" "A shadow." His voice quivered. "Over there." Jessica followed his gaze, but all she saw was more darkness, swirling and shifting like a tempest. Her breath hitched as an ethereal wail floated through the air, chilling her bones. "Please?" The cry was unmistakable, laced with desperation. It wrapped around her, pulling her forward. "Wait! That sounds like her!" she yelled, pointing back toward where they had found the girl. "What if she needs us?" "Jessica!" Harold's voice cracked with fear. "That is not her anymore. We've got to keep moving." Yet the whisper called her still, weaving a web of confusion and dread. Help! It was a siren song that gripped her heart, dragging her heartstrings back to that haunting moment. The twisted girl had fished for their sympathy, ensnaring them in her dark game. "No, no," she muttered, shaking her head. The pulsing shadows were becoming overwhelming. "We need to," but the house roared back, the walls creaking like tortured souls. "Run!" Harold shouted, dragging her behind him as they dashed further into the dark corridor. Lights flickered erratically, revealing glimpses of wooden beams that resembled gnarled fingers reaching out toward them. With each passing second, the laughter from earlier surged back, filling the air with a sickening glee that made their skin crawl. The very foundation of the house groaned, as if it fed off their fear. "Why is it laughing?" Jessica shot back, her heart racing. "I don't know." Harold gasped. "But it's not just as it's as if the house is alive. We need to find another exit. Now!" The very shadows seemed to respond, intensifying like a storm about to break. When they rounded another corner, the darkness shifted again. Before them, the corridor stretched endlessly, creating a disorienting illusion that they were trapped in a perpetual loop. Suddenly, a door appeared at the end of the passage, slightly ajar and pulsating green light spilling through the cracks. Hope surged through Jessica, a beacon amidst the consuming darkness. "Over there!" She pointed. "It could be our way out." Harold squinted at the shimmer, then stared at her, his eyes filled with conflict. "Jess, are you sure? Something feels wrong." "No, we can't. There's no time. We're not going to die here." She rushed toward the door, her pulse thrumming in tandem with the throbbing energy around them. She reached out to grasp the knob, but the laughter grew louder, morphing into anguished screams. In that moment, the shadows clawed at her ankles, yanking her back, pulling her into a whirlpool of despair. "Help! Help!" It was the girl again, her voice echoing through the depths. But this time, there was something else beneath. Something deeper. A figure shrouded in darkness loomed behind the door, and with a burst of blinding light, it creaked open. "Jessica!" Harold screamed, grabbing her arm, but it was too late. She was already drawn to the light, consumed by the pull of the unknown. Was it salvation or another trap? Frozen on the threshold, she could feel the darkness wrapping around her, and the grotesque silhouette of the girl laughed, a terrifying, cruel sound that left her breathless. What would step out from the light, and would either of them survive the encounter? In that moment, she realized they had become pawns in something far greater, something that played with souls and shadows. As the light burst forth, illuminating the horror ahead, she understood they were no longer mere seekers of escape. They'd awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. Would they confront it head-on, or would they fall prey to its sinister charm? What choice, what sacrifice would they face next? With a deep breath, Jessica stepped through the doorway, the blinding light swallowing her whole. She squinted, bracing herself for whatever lay beyond. The room pulsed with a strange energy, and for a moment, she felt weightless, suspended between fear and hope. Harold was right behind her, his voice low and urgent. "Jess, we don't know what's in there." But his warning faded away as the light began to settle. As her vision adjusted, she found herself in a surreal setting. The room was filled with sheer curtains billowing like ghosts, casting ethereal shadows. A massive chandelier hung above, glittering, but the air felt heavy, charged with an electrifying tension. It felt almost like they had crossed into another realm altogether. "Where are we?" Jessica murmured, scanning every corner, searching for signs of danger or hope. Suddenly, the laughter echoed again, but it was different now. It seemed closer, more distinct. "You've come seeking answers, but do you truly understand the cost?" The voice was smooth, laced with a chilling amusement. Out of the shadows, a figure emerged. Dressed in an elegant suit, with an air of authority, a man stood there, one Jessica had never seen before but was somehow eerily familiar. "Welcome to my domain," he said, a wicked smile curling on his lips. His eyes looked deep, too knowing, and the hairs on Jessica's arms stood on end. "Who are you?" Jessica demanded, trying to stabilize her fear. "What do you want with us?" The figure stepped forward, and as he did, the walls seemed to pulse with life again. "I am the keeper of secrets, the curator of dreams and nightmares. You've drawn quite a bit of attention by crossing my threshold." He turned to Harold, eyes sharpening. "I knew you thought you could escape my grasp." "What do you mean?" Harold took a cautious step back, and Jessica felt her heart race in unison with the escalating tension. The man laughed softly, as if savoring a joke only he could hear. Those who seek to unearth truths often become the very fuel that feeds the darkness. What does that mean for Mark? Jessica pressed, desperate for meaning, for a sliver of guidance. A flicker of annoyance crossed the man's face. Your brother is but a pawn caught in a larger game, one that has played long before you were born. He waved a hand, revealing a long table draped with photographs and documents similar to those in the archive, a chaotic collage of lives entwined in perilous webs. No. Jessica's voice transformed into a roar, desperation pushing her forward. He is not just a pawn. He is my brother. The figure's humor faded, a trace of something darker creeping into his eyes. Emotions cannot shield you here, girl. I can show you what fate awaits him if you dare to understand the truth. Without her consent, images danced before her, a whirlwind of faces and memories. Mark appeared, laughing and vibrant, but then darkness clawed around him, shadows whispering secrets, betrayal erupting in chaos. She felt each moment pierce her heart, a tapestry woven with her brother and tragic consequences she could barely comprehend. No, Jessica choked, tears stinging her eyes. What do you want? To cement your brother's fate or change it, the man proclaimed, lifting a finger as a deep silence fell. But the truth comes at a price, and only one may walk out intact. His gaze fell on Harold. Will it be you who takes the fall for what your game has unleashed? Harold's expression shifted, confusion morphing into steely resolve. I would do anything to save her brother. But asking Jessica to sacrifice herself is out of the question. You misunderstand, the man said, gesturing around the lavish room. The choice is either to sacrifice oneself or allow the darkness to consume you all. Jessica stepped forward, anchoring herself with determination. I would sacrifice anything for my brother. I know what that darkness can do, and I refuse to be its victim. Her words echoed strongly, cutting through the frightened whispers that lingered as the figure regarded her, intrigued. Bravery can be a foolish ally. Very well, if you are willing to risk everything, perhaps you can change the tide. But know this, in facing one truth, you may awaken another. The walls trembled as shadows twisted, swirling around them, a storm forming at their center. Jessica reached out, feeling a pull toward the storm, a connection to Mark she had not felt before. She pressed onward through the chaos and felt an overwhelming rush, a mixture of fear and hope. Jessica, stop! Harold shouted, his voice strained against the clamor. But she couldn't retreat now. She needed to know, to save Mark. The shadows folded around her, tugging at her essence, whispering promises and taunts. This is your moment. What will you sacrifice to break the chains? Jessica closed her eyes, envisioning her brother's smiling face, the memories they shared. I'll give myself, she stated boldly. I will face the darkness alone if that's what it takes. The laughter echoed as the shadows lunged, engulfing her whole, and an icy sensation washed over her, leading her into a world of unraveling truths. Harold shouted out, "No! Jessica!" But it was too late. In that moment, she understood. The darkness was not just a force to be feared, it was a part of her now. She would confront whatever nightmares awaited her. She would save her brother, no matter the cost. And as the darkness swallowed her whole, she felt a flicker of hope igniting deep within. She was not alone. The storm quieted, and when Jessica opened her eyes again, she was standing in a dimly lit room. A single door lay ajar in front of her. She stepped toward it, ready to face whatever horror stood behind. As she pushed it open, a surge of light burst forth, illuminating a path away from the shadows, leaving behind the haunting laughter that had pursued her. Jessica breathed deep, unshaken now. She wasn't just a pawn, she was a player ready to rewrite her brother's destiny. Whatever lay ahead, she knew she could fight, and she could win. And as she stepped into the light, the echoes of fear began to fade away, leaving hope blooming in its place. This is where her story truly began. Now, if you enjoyed this conclusion and don't want to miss out on future electrifying twists, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Smash that like button now, it really helps feed the algorithm and keeps the stories rolling in. And I want to hear from you, so flood that comment section with your thoughts. What do you think happened after Jessica stepped into the light? Lastly, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this intense finale. Your support means everything.